All right, everybody. Well, welcome to today's It's Alive. I'm Scott Santons. I've been researching, writing, and advocating for the concept of unconditional or universal basic income for the last 10 years. For those new to the concept, it's the idea that every individual in a society can and should be guaranteed a periodic cash payment without means, test, or work requirement in order to make their way in the world upon a firm foundation. I recently started the Income to Support All Foundation, or ITSA Foundation, which provides support to projects that aim to make UBI a reality through research, storytelling, and implementation. You can learn more at itsafoundation.org. Again, this is It's Alive. We meet here every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern, and we usually go for about 2 hours. We talk about the developments in the world of UBI and meet with people who are making it happen. And this time today, we do not have any special guests with us. We'll just be talking amongst each other, me and my fellow co-hosts, Conrad Shaw and Josh Worth. Conrad Shaw is a UBI guy, and Josh Worth is here as Comingler. Comingle is one of the first projects we're promoting at the ITSA Foundation. And Josh, do you just want to mention a little bit about Comingle and give a bit of an update on that as well?
Yeah, I think everybody's familiar here with it, but it's Comingle's. It is a money sharing app that we've been developing for quite a while now, and it's the idea is that it's basically a DIY UBI, and it allows people to pool a percentage of their income into a community fund that gets divided up evenly every week. And then the result is that members give money when they have it and get money when they need it, so that no member ever goes a week without income. And you can learn all about that at comingle.us.
Thanks, Josh. Conrad, you want to give a update on now that we're on the other side of the Indiegogo, but also how that's going, how it went?
Yeah. So now that the deadline is over, we reached our $75,000 financial target. Indiegogo allows us to keep the campaign open indefinitely, so we can more organically grow the community. And the focus is going to be building the number of backers, of people, more than it is raising dollars, to show that social proof. So we're up to 649 backers right now. We've raised just under $81,000. If you search Indiegogo or Comingle on Indiegogo, or Scott, have you put it in the comments? The link to the.
Well, I actually forgot to do the comments. I'll do that now.
Yeah, let's. The comments you can put in your questions and things, but also we'll put in some good links, including the Indiegogo page. But part of what we're trying to do with these spaces is to drive people to sort of start engaging with the content and join the community. Check out the Indiegogo page, share it with people, and even $1 gets another person on our list of people, which is super helpful in going out to other bigger foundational funders for the rest of the budget. Just the other day, we were talking to a potential funder who was impressed by how the campaign went and threw in another $25,000 through the ITSA Foundation. So you can really help us by helping us build this community of future comminglers.
Thanks, Conrad. That's awesome news too about the 25K. I was really excited to hear that myself, and really does show that starting with and showing grassroots support can really bring in more people. Also, just want to mention to everybody too that if you want to learn more about Comingle, and also if you just want to listen to even any of the previous spaces that we've done, check out Comingle on YouTube. And so I guess next up, since we're all just discussing basic income in general, I would usually just mention some news and just kind of summarize it. But this time I think it'd be great to actually discuss some of this stuff as well and really get into it. And so I think I want to start the news I want to start with today is I guess I'd like to start with just some news from yesterday. And this is so yesterday was, I think it was yesterday, was the International Day of Eradicating Poverty. And the United Nations Development Program published something about their goals of ending poverty by 2030. And it actually, in this, they endorsed universal basic income. And so I just want to mention a couple things. I shared this even just a bit earlier today. And just some quotes from this. So they mentioned that one of the great changes in mindsets of recent decades is that we have recognized that poverty is not natural or an inevitable fact of life. It's the very unnatural outcome of failing to truly recognize or care that every human is equal in dignity and deserves the same opportunities. It is a byproduct of unjust, biased laws, policies, or institutions that deepen marginalization. They mentioned a stat that in more than 30 countries, as an example, women and girls do not enjoy the rights to inherit or own land. And worldwide, having a job isn't a guarantee of being safe from poverty. According to the International Labor Organization, 13% of the world's workers experience moderate poverty and 8% extreme poverty, which means 1 in 5 people on the planet in the working population are the working poor. So it's just really highlights this nonsense that, you don't deserve, enough to, if you're, all these people who are in poverty are lazy. And I mean, that's just nonsense. Many people in poverty, most people in poverty who can work, do work. They just don't earn enough to not live in poverty. And they also mentioned that in the last 3 years alone, more than 190 countries rolled out more than 3,333 social protection measures, with 73% of low-income countries and 66% of lower middle-income countries relying on social assistance measures, mainly cash transfers. So in this quote from here, UNDP advocates for universal basic income, which has the potential to restore dignity and create a cushion against future shocks. And I just, I think it's very exciting to see news like this. They did come out during COVID, and they were talking about, the need for emergency basic income and temporary basic income, I believe is what they even called it. But they clearly now recognize that if we're going to eliminate poverty, then universal basic income needs to be part of that. And on the, I'll just also mention too that whereas I see this as great news, there is of course a conspiracy theory out there around this stuff as well, and it's really hilarious actually when you find this, as many conspiracy theories are. But it's you can find this like shared document where it's like, oh, this is how the UN wants to like take over the world and stuff. And one of them lists universal basic income and in parentheses austerity. And I think this just
is synonymous.
Yeah, no. Universal basic income, yes, that is what austerity means. So yeah, very funny. But yeah, I think that's great news. And yeah, what do you think about that?
I think it's just funny. I mean, I was reading that thing by that billionaire guy the other day too. It's just like these ideas are so complementary. Progress and prosperity and adequate distribution. it's just sort of mind-boggling to me to see how people kind of pose them against each other, like, you know, UBI versus the market, or it just says to me that what UBI is in function, in mechanism, is just widely misunderstood by a lot of people who think they know what they're talking about, don't really understand the mechanism of what UBI is or what it's supposed to be. And I think one of the underlying assumptions, sometimes even from people who are pro, is that the point of UBI is to let everyone just stop working forever, or jump straight to some sort of luxury space communism of the future, rather than being a very pragmatic and efficient mechanism of making sure our markets actually function, that people have access to pursue their productivity, not avoid it. And I think that one of the easiest ways to tell that people are misunderstanding UBI is by the fact that everyone conflates it with, unemployment or welfare sorts of benefits, where it's, to me, if you really understand what UBI is, it's not just like a better version of welfare. It's the opposite. The mechanism is fundamentally contrary to a paternalistic and targeted mechanism. And if you look at it like from an engineering perspective, you would expect that the incentives and the outcomes would be radically different from a system designed almost seemingly to specifically incentivize things like withdrawing and not working, and it's just, I don't know what it's going to take to get the message across, but over the last 7 years of making the argument over and over again and just not having the platform to get it to stick, these projects we're doing where it's experiential, that's almost the only thing I have faith in anymore, is like, let's just build it, let's let people understand through practice how it works, because I don't know, people just aren't wrapping their heads around it. And maybe if we had people with big enough platforms to say the right words in the right way and know what they're talking about, then it would start to stick. But man, it's depressing to see these sorts of conspiracy theories come out where it's fueled by, it's like they're not talking about the same policy whatsoever. So how can you even engage in that argument? All you can really say is that's not UBI,
Yeah.
What about all of us being zoo animals, as Mark Andreessen said in his big
Yeah.
manifesto?
Okay. Yeah. We can
You
get
want
to
to
that.
address that one? I think. What do you think? I feel like maybe we are going to be zoo animals, and maybe that's not so bad. I don't know. What does he mean by that?
That's the cognitive dissonance I'm talking about. Is like, it sounds like he's describing what we already have, with like the total reliance on a labor market, people having to go to work where they're told. Like he spends all of his time in this thing talking about his values and how people are special, and we need to decentralize power and governance, and then.
All right. Well, let's frame this first. Before we get into it, it's like a lot of people. I mean, you have no idea what we're talking about, most likely.
Right.
So okay. So Mark Andreessen, a Silicon Valley billionaire, just published something that
who started Google. Don't forget. Am I right about this? Is he one of the Google founders, or is he just was he an original Google person?
I haven't looked into just like all the investments that he's made. He could be an early investor in Google. He could be.
All right, I will look. I'll Google him right now.
Yeah, he's invested in a lot of different things, though. So he's made some good tech investments, and he really apparently thinks quite highly of himself. And anyways, not to get too off the track until we dive into this, but so yeah, he did this really long techno-optimist manifesto just published, and in this technological manifesto, this is, in general, it's about basically how technology is great and should be left alone, essentially, to just do its thing, because the problems that arise are from any kind of regulations and any kind of risk reduction. Anything that gets in the way of technology is bad, and we should just let technology do its thing, and everything will be better off. And so the section that he makes sure to mention basic income in this. And, despite, like, I agree with how technology can be very useful as a tool, and a lot of good can come from technology. And so I also already know that he's anti-UBI because we got into this like years ago. But I was still just kind of shocked to see the way that he described it. So I'm just going to read this one section, and this is right next to each other, and it's hilarious even that he did it this way. Okay, so this is a sentence from this. It says, quote, "We believe in Milton Friedman's observation that human wants and needs are infinite." And then he says, "We believe markets also increase societal well-being by generating work in which people can productively engage. We believe a universal basic income would turn people into zoo animals to be farmed by the state. Man was not meant to be farmed. Man was meant to be useful, to be productive, to be proud." So, hilarious, especially hilarious that he started that by mentioning Milton Friedman. So he is a supporter of Milton Friedman, and Milton Friedman, of course, is a supporter of basic income. So for
He
him,
also mentioned Hayek earlier as
right? Yeah,
another basic income supporter.
yeah, he does mention Hayek also in this manifesto, and yes, Hayek was also pro UBI. So clearly, there's a disconnect for him to be referencing these godfathers of free market capitalism who both supported UBI, and for him to say that UBI is terrible and would lead to us being zoo animals. Okay, so then what does this even mean, to turn people into zoo animals to be farmed by the state? Okay.
First off,
though,
farm
like
zoo animals.
I googled him, and yeah, I knew him because he's co-founded Netscape, which was the first web browser, and Mosaic, which was even before that. So, I mean,
Right.
he deserves to spout off a little bit, but yeah, I don't know about exactly how far he's gone since those days.
Okay. Yeah. So where it comes to the zoo animals and being farmed by the state, I think personally that he's been somewhat influenced by the conspiracy community that has grown up around, with their belief of basic income being something that would be used to control people. I think he's probably getting some of this from that whole community and what's come out of that. But yeah, it's nonsense for people to understand basic income and the definition of basic income even being unconditional. So, I mean, again, just since I already read this earlier, that a basic income is a periodic cash payment without means test or work requirement. There are no work requirements. There are no means testing. This is an unconditional amount of income. How do you control someone with something that is unconditional cash? And so the conspiracy theory stuff is saying, oh, well, it won't actually be basic income. Or I mean, it won't actually be unconditional, and that it'll be this or that. It'll be a CBDC, it'll be programmable currency. The government will shut it off if you disagree with them. Like all of this stuff. But besides that, also, there's this assumption that basic income makes you lazy, that it's somehow anti-work. You know, that he says that man was meant to be useful, to be productive, to be proud, which is to suggest that if you have a basic income, then you cannot be useful, productive, or proud. Like it somehow prevents you from doing work, that it somehow prevents you from finding your purpose, which of course is exactly the opposite. We know that if you have an unconditional floor, that you actually use that to pursue purpose. Like you need to have something, and all the evidence shows that, all the trials support that. Even our own common sense should recognize that that's true for each and every one of us. And if we, look at other people and say, oh, well, they are lazy. I'm not lazy. Like, look at Andreessen. He is a billionaire. So he's a billionaire. Why hasn't he stopped working? How is his $1 billion somehow preventing him from being useful or productive? Now, in this case of writing this manifesto, I would argue
it seems like maybe
that's not useful or productive.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, a lot of people, would argue that he's a busy guy who's doing lots of work, and but he's a billionaire. So how is that possible with all this money that should be stopping him from pursuing value? Yeah, it's just nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
Did you want to mention any other segments from this?
I highlighted the whole damn thing, and I have all these issues. I want to just break it down to my main. I think people want to chime in too, so I want to invite them to speak. So my main takeaway, like if I was talking to him, I even DM'd him. I knew he wouldn't respond. I was like, "Hey, we're going to talk about your thing. You can show up, defend yourself." But he's got this massive blind spot. Like I am inclined to generally agree that technology, the growth of technology, is the greatest driver of human prosperity and progress and everything. It's just that the blind spot he has is that he only sees the technology that he chooses to work on as the technology that grows or needs to grow, and assumes that the social technology that allows him to accumulate, into the 0.0001% is already fixed. It's already solved. Like we have a free market. He talks all about free markets and the functioning of competitive markets. And he just assumes we're already there, where like it's sort of a, self-fulfilling, like I obviously deserve to be where I am. How do I justify where I am? The main thing I would say to him is you need to understand that within this entire worldview of markets being the way to get stuff to people as effectively as possible and everything being driven by technological progress, it all actually makes sense and holds together if you understand that the technology that's lagging behind the rest of our technology is the social technology that allows us to effectively share resources and distribute resources appropriately. And he keeps talking about how like the average income is the best it's ever been, and it's just a very non-engineering mindset to miss the fact that it is an average and that there are still billions of people underserved. And if you're looking at this like a real technologist and an empiricist and an engineer, and you say, we have more abundance than ever on average, we have more than enough food, housing, clothes, whatever, to get everyone their basic needs, and billions of people are being missed, then this is clearly an engineering problem, and it's a problem of distribution of resources. You have to acknowledge that there's something broken there if you're a serious thinker, futurist, technologist. And I would put to him, UBI is the solution. It is the social tech that allows us to get money to people in such a way that it doesn't miss anyone, and it allows the markets to function as if it's non-dominant. And it can actually be competitive if people do not have to participate in a specific market. Everything turns into capitalistic over-leverage and monopoly when you don't have a redistributive function that gets to everybody. We're leaving the door open for corruption and coercion if we do not have a redistributive mechanism like this. So this is the social tech that makes his ideas make sense. And the fact that he switches within one sentence and demonizes UBI right after saying the things that UBI would make possible, it just blows my mind. It's an example.
Well, let's throw this out there. Like Comingle is technology. It's not like from some centralized location. I mean, I guess it is. Like, we're creating like a node on the massive network of the free market that is performing a function of doing something that is, I don't know, is it anti-capitalist or anti-free market? I mean, it's a. What do you think he would say to something like what we're building, which is a use of technology, but it's being used for the purpose of something that he's not into?
That's what I invited him for, is like, I want to say to him what I said to the sort of right-wing crowd on the podcast a while ago is, aren't you curious? We're not forcing anything on anyone. Why don't you, throw in some money to see if we fall on our faces or if we make it happen? Aren't you an empiricist and a technologist? Put your money where your mouth is.
Mm-hmm.
I would assume that, I mean, based on what he also said about basic income making people lazy, that he believes that a technologically made small basic income floor like Comingle is doing would harm people, and that people would take advantage of it, that they would sit at home doing nothing with their $50 a week.
Right, as zoo animals.
Right. The zoo animals are $50 a week. Yeah, it's just, he's a hypocrite, and so I would assume that he would have a hypocritical take on this, even despite the commingle mechanism being technologically available and being entirely voluntary.
But there's nothing about it goes against anything else. There's nothing that is like anti-free market. There's nothing that's
absolutely
anti-technological. There's no effort. There's nothing that's stopping the massive, the great wealth of everything that's going to happen from technological acceleration going unfettered, right? Like, we're not stopping any of that. So I guess
my empathetic humanist cap and trying to understand everybody and benefit of the doubt, like what would have to happen to make me behave the way he does or believe the way he does. I think there's a human need to self-justify. And you find yourself in an exceptional position. Like, I have billions of dollars. I'm massively overpowered. How does this make sense? I have to make this make sense.
Right.
I must be in the 0.001% of intelligence, and like, otherwise you have to acknowledge how broken things are and how just rampantly unjust they are.
Yeah,
I'm putting in the
it's the flip side of the just world hypothesis.
So I'm putting an article, like the article in my kindest, most generous heart that I wrote as an open letter to ultra wealthy and billionaires. I'm putting that in the comments because I think it's super relevant. But this is what I would say to someone like Mark.
There's a whole concept out there that I want to like see how we kind of can work with this, is of like effective acceleration, which I don't know if you've read about this. It's like they've got terms like techno-capitalistic progress being inevitable, and techno-capital is an inexorable physical process. So this is on their effectiveacceleration.tech website. That it is pretty clear that this is the school of thought that Mark Andreessen's coming out of, that there's sort of this like, there's these physical universal forces that are causing this acceleration of technology. And there's it's a good argument. There's definitely no you can track all of it pretty closely to what is actually happening in the growth of technology. Like, that's taking this perspective of like that we're in this like techno organism that's evolving, right? And that anything we do to stand in the way of that is somehow like against nature, right? Like so like it's almost like creating this like um, divine right that is saying that things, because we have not interfered with this force, what we are currently experiencing is a result of that, right? And so being a billionaire is like, well, I guess I just did it right. And so like essentially God and nature has led me to be looking down on everybody with my billions of dollars, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's that self-deification that muddies all of the principles that they talk about
Yeah.
like about individualism and exceptionalism and humankind, the progress of humankind being from some combination of excellent individuals and the collaboration of like the human colossus all working together.
Right.
It gets all confused and muddied as soon as someone gets kind of caught in the self-deification delusion spiral. Like, I am the god of this religion because I've won it. Yeah.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's not an entirely inaccurate description of what we're seeing, right? But then you get, you get people like Sam Altman that have also like reached pretty much the pinnacle of the growth curve, right? And that are still able to see that, well, this is actually having some negative effects too. Like letting things run rampant is running rampant all over people's lives.
Right.
Conrad, did you want to read from your article, your essay that you wrote?
Do I want to read from it?
Yeah, I thought that's what you were leading to. You're going to read.
I want other people to read from it. It's so long.
Okay. I thought you were going to have like a segment.
Oh no, I posted it in the.
Okay.
I could tease the beginning to get the spirit of it out there, but it's an open letter to the ultra wealthy, and it starts, "Dear esteemed sir or madam, with all due respect, we should start by acknowledging that you're rich." And then I go on for about 30 minutes to talk about all the blind sides that a lot of people have about value, work, society. But it's very generous too. It's like, it's not your fault. You've been deified. You get the credit for everything, but you also get the blame for everything. And the class reunion that I'm proposing here is that we all come back to the same status as mortal, and how do we move forward from that status? So it's not like a demotion from God to non-God or whatever. It's a promotion from false idol to real human being. That's basically what we're trying to accomplish here by re-tethering these escaping transcending billionaires back to the humanity that they don't realize that they're still part of. But there's a lot of fun stuff in there about ways to think about UBI.
So something else that I wanted to make sure and touch is just the beginning of his manifesto. So this is another quote, and this is directly from the beginning. So if you just start reading it, he says,
"In the beginning,"
says, "We are being lied to. We are told that technology takes our jobs, reduces our wages, increases inequality, threatens our health, ruins the environment, degrades our society, corrupts our children, impairs our humanity, threatens our future, and is ever on the verge of ruining everything." That's like this. It's a second sentence, and
it's an odd premise.
It's all wrong. Like technology, yes, does take jobs. Now it creates jobs too, but it does take jobs. People have been losing their jobs to automation for decades and have been getting new jobs, and a lot of those jobs don't pay as much as the jobs that they had. So that is important to realize, but instead he just wants to say that essentially it doesn't take our jobs, and it also doesn't reduce our wages. But of course it does.
Well, on average, his wages went up
Right.
enough to
I know.
overcompensate for how all of our wages went down. So
he said it
on
doesn't.
average, we're all richer.
He said it doesn't increase inequality. So here he's a billionaire. He's a tech billionaire, and he's claiming that technology has not increased inequality. Like, Well, of course it has. We've been watching this for decades, and part of this is offshoring, but a lot of it is also technology, and there's debate as to which is more. But regardless, technology has enabled offshoring, and the result of this too is just your if you are someone like an Elon Musk, the richest person in the world, then you are able to own, say, a factory like that is producing cars. And these cars were also produced back in the day by people, but the factories are much different now. There's far more robots involved in these factory floors now. And if you were to look at these pictures from back in the day at like your Ford and GM, there were just thousands upon thousands of workers. And yeah, if you own the robots, if you own the machines, and those machines are doing the work of people, then yeah, that has increased inequality, and it's one of the reasons it's gotten so bad.
No, you're being lied to, Scott.
Man, I don't think he's a bad guy. I don't think anyone's a bad. I think everyone wants to be a good person, and there's something. I mean, a lot of people are self-deluded and confused about a lot of things because it's really hard not to be in this world. Like the information we get is very siloed, and we're always trying to justify it with our, sort of our competitive and limited brains. There's something that happens when you have godlike power that really leans into that. That like not only can you be extra bubbled off from a lot of realities, but everything in your life is telling you you're a genius and you've figured it all out, and that leads to like a level of self-delusion that is very, very dangerous to have in the hands of people who actually have the power.
But I'm wondering,
what our society should look like.
Yeah, totally. But I'm wondering, why does anybody know why he felt the need to write a manifesto all of a sudden? Like that, I mean, when has a manifesto ever led to something good, really? But like
if people read my manifesto, I'm sure it would lead somewhere good. I think it's a self-justification thing. I think
but I guess is it because is it really like a reaction to like some the idea that we need some kind of AI regulation or something like that? Is it just kind of like it's a kickback against something? Like there's some threat out there that he is apparently feeling, right? Like is it the fear of like some kind of like government regulation though? I mean, it's not coming out of nowhere though.
I think it's the fear that he's the bad guy, and he's fighting against that. He wants to be the good guy, and so he's justifying a worldview. That if the message out there is like this is broken and a lot of people are suffering from this thing that's made you successful, you can either acknowledge that you're part of something that's hurting a lot of people, or you can defend the thing. And he's going with plan B. But I think it's very personal. I think it's very much about who he is in the world and his legacy and his impact.
Yeah, I don't know. It felt like there's some kind of like there's a threat against his own status there that is more specific. That's not just like people getting a bad vibe about technology, like, which I don't even know where that's coming from. Like, I don't think that there's a huge like outcry against more cooler apps coming out. I don't know.
What I don't get is I'm not going to be as nice as Conrad in my estimations of him. I'm not going to say lots of terrible things, but I will just say too that clearly, I mean, he's a billionaire. He's made some smart investments, and if you're a smart investor, then part of what you do is you actually are pretty evidence-based. I mean, you are looking at the numbers of the corporations you're investing in. You want to know what the reality is. You want to know what are how much money are they making? What is the overhead cost? What are the real projections? Like you want to know what's actual reality in order to make smart investments. So at some point in his life, he believed in, say, empirical evidence and like actual reality. And at this point in his life, he apparently does not feel that way, at least about a lot of things, because he is making these assumptions and he's saying things that aren't true because he wants them to be true. And as Conrad was saying too, I mean, a lot of this is it's part of this just world hypothesis where he's justifying his own wealth by obviously he has made the right decisions and therefore he knows things. And so whereas like before he learned things in order to help him make decisions, and now it's like because he's made good decisions, then he doesn't need data anymore. And then he can just say things and those things will be smart and right, which clearly are not. Like if he really cared about empirical evidence, if he was wondering if basic income was bad or not and wondering how people behaved if they were provided it, he would look at the evidence. Like my pin thread, it's over like 90 tweets now, each one to a study, and the evidence is extremely clear that people that there are all kinds of positive results from basic income, including the fact that people don't reduce their work, and that people become happier, their mental health improves, they're better able to do what's important to them. Like it should matter to him. Like reality should matter to him. And same thing with like what he said in the beginning with the lies and saying like technology doesn't increase inequality, it doesn't push down wages, it has no like negative environmental impacts. Like all this stuff is just complete, just they're falsified nonsense. Like it's just not true. But he's saying it because he like wants it to be true. And like I don't know, like another thing that worries me and has worried me for decades, or not decades, but for a decade, is this concern that I mean I again I'm not going to call myself techno optimist, but I am optimistic about technology, and I do believe in all of the good it can do, and it worries me that although it can do all these things and it has been doing these things, that people have been getting hurt by it. And it has been leaving people worse off. I mean, productivity has more than doubled since the 70s. When that's not true about wages. And as a result of this, you've got people who feel left behind. A lot of this is like related to the election of Donald Trump, the polarization of our politics, and just this the rise of authoritarianism, even not only here but around the world. Like there are real concerns to be had about not doing what's necessary in order to make sure technology works for all of us. Like instead of just thinking that it does work for all of us when it doesn't. Like there's dangers to that. If he is clearly so pro-capitalist and even libertarian capitalist that like I it makes me think of this picture of like Mark Andreessen being like a little kid who's like hugging their favorite like animal to death, where like the animal is capitalism. So like
Yeah.
they love it so much that they're just gonna like make it stop breathing. Like capitalism needs people to be customers. It needs people with money to spend in markets. And if most of the population or a large percentage of it loses the ability to express demand in markets, then capitalism breaks. And Hayek understood that. That was Hayek's argument. And again, it's ridiculous that he even quoted and referred to Hayek and even listed Hayek at the end of this as far as like the patron saints of techno optimism. And not only that, but there's other people in that list besides Milton Friedman and Friedrich Hayek who were also pro UBI, like Bertrand Russell is another one. Like there are other people on this list who knew that basic income was important, and he listed
I don't know.
them.
There's something about. I think I might have like figured out the fallacy is that there is the tying of capitalism to technological growth. That unfettered capitalism is the only way that technological growth can happen to bring us all of its grand rewards, right? that but there's nothing about technology that says that that the only way for it to grow is through total free market technology. Like, where's the connection there? Like, there's no I don't know, there seems to be really kind of forcing these two things together, these two concepts of, like, technological evolution and this, and like Darwinism, right? Like that we have to just let it run its course, and whoever gets hurt in the process, oh well, that's just like, that's how it happens. It's survival of the fittest. It's that same sort of, it's kind of been around forever, right?
It's the thing is, like, so I've been raising money for like 7 years and going to billionaires and things like that to try to raise that money. And the thing that's bred into all of us is some level of the myth of the meritocracy, and the just world fallacy. And it slaps you in the face when you actually find ways to, like, get in front of these people and have conversations, just how human they are and how stupid so many of them are. And it's like, you look at people's achievements and how they have a million times as much reward as other people, and you assume they must be in some way exceptional. But the thing that's come to me most is that their timing and their luck was the most exceptional part of it. It's 99% of those billions. And so when I look at this, like, Angie posted in the comments that we're giving too much energy to Mark Andreessen, and I think, of course,
it's probably true.
That's the point. The point is, he commands so much energy because he has so much power. And the thing we need to realize as a society, we all, to some level, worship billionaires, whether it's as villains or heroes. They're all gods of some nature to us, because they're so powerful. They actually have godlike power, so that when they post a manifesto, unlike mine that 4 people read, no one cares about, like, everyone reads it. You can just get something in the New York Times if you have that level of power. And if you could write something that's completely ignorant, under-researched, whatever. I mean, he comes across like a middle schooler whose own heroes that he's quoting would directly contradict him, and from one sentence to the next, it's like he's clearly not good at analyzing the situation. He's not putting together logical, coherent thoughts. And the fact that we are sitting here all talking about what this guy thinks is pointing to the problem of the accumulation of power. And he goes, the whole article, he talks all about the beauty of decentralization, and he doesn't connect the dots that he is a centralizing force. He's hoarding billions of dollars worth of power that could be distributed and decentralized among millions of people, and better used. And so just the idea that's the point of the article I put together, is like, you have been falsely deified. It's not your fault, really, but it's also, you need to be told about this because you have the blind spots that come with it and with being human.
So yeah, I think we can break that cycle and stop talking about it, and maybe take a caller, or take a listener.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool with me.
Angie, do you want to chime in?
Yeah, hi, good morning, you all.
Hi, Angie. Good to see you.
I want to support you in getting more people signed up with Comingle. I just reposted this space on another social media platform that I'm very active in. Not naming other social media platforms because I'm getting banned from those by promoting X.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because I have quite a following. I guess they're afraid of me. A little old grandmother who, supported Andrew Yang and supported Ralph Nader in the day. So it seems like I support the losers, but that doesn't keep me from voicing my opinion. And what I wanted to know, my question is, since you all made the goal on Comingle, over, you had a $75,000 goal, you made it to 81. I'm so happy with you all for doing that. I just don't want you all, I don't want to say don't. So I don't want you all to be so busy trying to get more supporters that it takes from your time on developing this app. And I want to help in getting more people for $1, $2. It's a one-time donation. It's not every month to sign up. Now, on this other social media platform that I'm very active in, I got active on it because my son went to a Ivy League prep school. And when this social media platform came out, the prep school sent all us parents a link to join up, and it took me about a year or two because I didn't understand it and I was busy, chasing down a high school boy who liked to go surfing and skip class. But so I got very involved with groups on that social media platform.
I think you can name it. You won't get kicked. Nobody's going to kick you out by naming it by name. I don't think.
Facebook. I'm
That's what
Facebook.
that's what it was sounding like. Okay.
Okay, so you got it.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
got it. I just wanted to see who was listening, paying
Yeah.
attention. So I got on Facebook early, and I really developed my niche within my community, within where I live. And so I posted Comingle on there every time because we have people in our small little valley that are hungry, that are old, that are have worked all their lives, that frankly lose their sense of worth when they are shuffled into a program for a government or county government program that's supposed to help them, right? They're already down and out. And these are proud people who have worked and lived all their lives in dignity. And then to be all of a sudden, they find themselves in a situation that's very precarious, and the
So
way that they take.
what was the reaction you got when
Okay,
you
so I've
posted it
been
to this?
posting. So when they ask for help, because we're very community oriented here, when they ask for help, I'm posting Comingle. I'm asking people to donate $1 and get into this thing. And I'm also posting that no, it's not going to solve Mrs. X's or Mrs. Y's problem today, but we've got to get the ball rolling, and we've got to get it rolling pretty fast because um, the world is moving pretty fast, and when you get past 65, you notice that you just don't have the balance and the wherewithal that you once had. So for elderly people, and I am elderly, I am officially an elderly person. um, it's more
So
difficult.
what was the reaction?
The
This is what
reaction,
I'm
I
dying to
don't
find out.
know.
Thank you
I
for
don't know
doing all
because
that, by the
people,
way.
I don't know what the reaction is, and frankly, I kind of go with the Buddhist attitude that you do the right thing, you say the right thing, and then you let it go. You
Yeah, I think that's really important, and that's the sort of attitude we're trying to foster is get involved, don't be super tied to a specific outcome, but be pushing in the right direction with us.
Yeah.
Like if we have a large community of people and it's growing, that's fantastic, and we can do a lot more as a group than us as individuals. I wanted to respond to something you said at the beginning where you don't want us to get distracted from the development now that we've raised some money to get development back on track, and that's exactly top of mind for us. So we have the reality of we still need to raise more money to have enough to get all the way through development. But now we have, because of what we raised in the crowd fund and what it inspired another donor to give us recently, we have enough for 3 or 4 months. That's runway. and we still have to do some fundraising through ITSA Foundation and things like that, and you know, to keep the runway open and to launch in a year. But we're able to now focus much more on development, and now that we're dropping out of the crowdfund mode and leaving the page up for more organic growth as it comes, that our sort of lifestyle is out of the chaotic campaign mode, and we're focusing much more on development, and we're talking with the developers that we work with and getting it all set up. So this all to say, we're going to keep as inspired, putting content on our YouTube page, right? The Comingle YouTube page. We're going to keep engaging on Twitter to a degree, but not as much as before. We're going to keep doing these spaces weekly as a way to regularly keep inviting the community in. Because now that we're out, the community is very important to keep engaged, to keep growing. But we don't have this strict deadline of like within 30 days. We can let it happen more naturally and more organically. If something at any point goes, catches fire in any way, then we can capitalize on it. But in the meantime, our focus is on the development of the app, and we are raising money on the side as well. So the efforts that you're making, I wouldn't be too tied to like people's reactions and how it's going. If you're pushing, it's just more out there that's helping push in the general direction of awareness and growth of the group.
It's
so
much appreciated
thank you for everything you're doing. And yeah, this is the sort of thing that we're going to build together in the end, like through development. And then once we launch, it's going to be a roller coaster of slow or fast growth that we can't really predict. We could just do everything we can to seed the soil so that it's possible, and we've done a lot with the crowdfund, and yeah, whatever you got is fine. And I wouldn't attach any sort of success or failure to however many people respond. It's just, we really appreciate you pushing.
for sure.
Thank you. So I'd just like to say one more thing, and then I'm going to drop down as a listener because I've got things to do. I encourage everyone to like and repost this and this space. And also I encourage anybody who wants to cross-post this. I was able to post it on Facebook. And if you're able to do that, I encourage you, even the people aren't on X, they can still listen in by just reposting. So repost and like, follow our wonderful host and our wonderful co-hosts. And thank you all. I get really teary-eyed because I see the solutions and they're just not happening as fast as the problems.
Yeah.
So thank you all.
Yeah, I guess this is maybe a good time to throw in the other
Thank
plugs
you,
for people
Thanks, Angie.
who want to know how else. So reposting and engaging with these spaces is great. I would subscribe and follow the YouTube channel for Comingle. Anyone who hasn't, I would put in $1 to the Indiegogo crowdfund. Don't feel bad about it being $1. We're looking for people, not numbers, and share that. And then the last thing is to follow us on here and to get on our newsletters for Comingle, for ITSA Foundation, and we'll keep you informed of like what's going on through all those channels. And whatever you feel comfortable sharing, whatever your venue is or your game is, do it. Just don't feel like like I said to Angie, don't feel like you gotta like get us 100 viewers or whatever, or 100 signups. Just stick with us and be engaged. And you by yourself is enough to add a lot of value to what we're doing,
Yeah, and also, it's great to share that in replies to people, and because other people will see those replies, and yeah, it doesn't matter how other people in return reply. There's no reason to get upset or depressed or whatever based on the feedback you get. But if a post is out there and it makes sense to share the link to Comingle or the Indiegogo to it or anything like that, like yeah, it's great to share that.
Yeah, I was mostly curious about the of the crowd that she was talking about. I guess sort of early adopters of Facebook that are maybe in that particular little audience. If there was any kind of take that was interesting there. So yeah, we're always trying to see like how the concept lands with different in different bubbles, I guess.
Yeah, it's an ongoing conversation, and you got to keep spreading your wings to make sure you're getting all the elements of the conversation.
Yeah, but so yeah, it's just it's a fun topic to talk about. From what I've found, like that's kind of why I've kept with it, is that it's like there's enough interesting conversations that can pop up just by discussing the concept of basic income and Comingle specifically.
All right, so the next thing that I'd like to talk about too, or at least add to the discussion mix, is this article on the New York Times that was just published yesterday, and it's titled "I Live in My Car." And this article is just heartbreaking to read, and it gets into the group of people now known as vehicle residents or the mobile homeless. And so here's some quotes from this article, and you'll be apparent why this is so related to basic income. The article says nothing about basic income, but just listen to this stuff. Ms. Audet, 49, earns over $72,000 a year as a social worker for the Washington State Department of Social and Health Services. But a combination of bad luck, bad debt, and a bad credit score priced her out of her apartment in Bellevue, a suburb of Seattle, one of the most expensive housing markets in the country. The cutoff for receiving housing assistance in King County is 80% of the median income, or $70,650. So she is homeless and lives out of her car, and earns essentially $1,400 too much to qualify for any kind of assistance. Now, so quote, around the country, real estate is being set aside for people like Ms. Audet in the form of parking lots. Dozens of such lots have opened in the last 5 years, with new ones being announced every few months, including as far east as Pennsylvania and North Carolina. They sprinkled across the Midwest, and they dot the spine of the Pacific Northwest, providing a safe harbor for a growing cohort of working Americans, who are wedged in the unforgiving middle. They earn too little to afford rent, but too much to receive government assistance, and have turned their cars into a form of affordable housing. A tiny house is typically 300 square feet. For months, Miss Audet, her daughter, and their cream-colored mutt Coda lived out of a space that was no more than 30 square feet. So these people are living in ultra tiny homes. In many cities, the mobile homeless are now the majority of the homeless population. People living out of vehicles make up about 53% in King County, Washington, where Ms. Audet lives, about 45% in San Mateo, a county perched on California's rugged northern cliffs, and the same predicament in LA, the number approaches 60%. Many of them have jobs. In Denver, 135 out of the 217 people who slept in one of the lots provided by the Colorado Safe Parking Initiative earlier this year earned on average of $1,581 a month. One bedrooms there averaged $1,655. There are so many people in need of a place to park that most are turned away. This is we only serve 10 to 20% of the people who call us, said one of the lot owners. In other parking lots across the country, car dwellers shared the hardships that landed them there. A man who scraped by delivering pizzas in Santa Barbara ended up in his Nissan Frontier when the pizza parlor cut his hours. A 35-year-old who installed home security systems ended up in his Chevy Suburban when he lost control of the drill, snapping his radial tendon. And one woman said she had to choose between helping her mother or herself. And it's just heartbreaking to see that there are so many people out there who are working. They have jobs, and the system as it exists, it does not see them. It does not reach them. They fall right through the holes in these nets, and it's just ridiculous how people even, you can look at the homeless, you can look at someone living out of their car, And again, this goes to the just world hypothesis. You look at that and you say, well, they must have made some poor decisions in their lives. Like they're lazy, they're not hard workers. They deserve to be homeless. They deserve to be living in poverty. And of, of course, that's not true. And not only is it like, not only is it terrible that someone who is working is living out of their car and homeless and living in poverty, but of course, I mean, where no one for any reason should be homeless. Like it should, that's what unconditional basic income recognizes, is that, we just got to make sure that everybody has this floor underneath them at all times for every reason. Like so much homelessness would have been prevented by just having a little bit more of an income, having that stability.
And they wouldn't just not be homeless anymore. There's also all the things they could do when they're no longer just trying to stay alive. Like these people have a lot to offer, and they're not offering it because they're lazy. They're not offering it because they're busy trying, to find a way to survive. It's a waste of their time and talent.
Yeah. I'll just mention too that the author of this piece also mentioned, and this is a stat that a lot of people know, I think, anyways, but for those who don't, at the current minimum wage is $7.25 an hour. Full-time worker would need to work 86 hours a week for all 52 weeks of the year, no vacations at all, just to afford a one-bedroom at market rent. And this is anywhere in the country. So it's just that people earn so little money, and again, you've got your Mark Andreessen billionaire. Like the country is just full of people who are working their asses off, and they just don't earn a lot of money. All the productivity growth for decades has flowed up to those like Mark, and has not been flowing to people who are now seeking to live in parking lots out of their cars, because now just even affording a simple apartment is just too much.
Do we want to open it up? There's a couple people who
Yeah, there's some people waiting.
Yeah, Paul, I just activated. Just will take him a second. Paul, hello there. Want to chime in?
Hi.
Is it God's Mark or God's Mark?
God's Mark.
Like,
can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you, Paul.
Yeah, okay. So I haven't fully finished reading Andreessen's manifesto, but one of the key...
Yeah, it's a long one.
Yeah,
it's painful. Yeah.
One of the key things that I cannot deal with is the fact that he's repeated the economist's assumption that that we're going to see exactly the same trend as has occurred elsewhere in history, that for every technological trend that there will be displacement of jobs, and then we'll see more jobs. And what's happened historically is that people have learned to do these new jobs. It takes a bit of time, but we're very creative, we're very capable, we learn new jobs. But this time round, we've got something called machine learning. And basically it learns faster than the average human. And we're already approaching, with the exponential development of AI, that it will learn to do the new jobs that are created faster than the average person can retrain. And in a capitalistic society, who on earth is going to employ a person that costs more, that doesn't work 24/7, and that is liable to make more mistakes when you've got an AI that can do it? And so we're going to be creating new jobs that the AI will be fulfilling quicker than we can train. That's the average person. So, I mean, that hypothesis,
that's a good point,
is that faulty, or is my logic good?
I think your logic's really solid. Yeah, that's a really good point, because, yeah, technology is creating jobs, but it's also creating the things to do those jobs, which is different.
And the economists have been saying repeatedly, it will be the same this time. We'll just have more jobs created. But as I say, it's this critical difference. History isn't going to repeat itself. It's not going to rhyme. This is the critical difference. And Google's DeepMind, their mission statement is, number one, solve intelligence. Number two, use it to solve everything else. Well, as far as capitalists are concerned, part of that everything else is how do we make even more money with lower costs? So I just see it inevitable, unless we have this new social construct, if we're going to stick with capitalism, we deserve what we get.
Yeah. I mean,
Yes.
if you're producing a massive amount of stuff with very, very little labor, then the question, of course, becomes who's buying the stuff. And according to Andreessen, and I guess people are going to be, it's either that people are going to be having lots of jobs still and will be able to buy this stuff, or he's thinking that technology will eliminate money. And I don't see him how he would love that. Like if we move to free goods and services, then of course that's like ending capitalism. And so again, like it doesn't make any sense. There's no logical, rational sense for his logic to be so rah capitalism, rah automation, and not care about the demand side of these things. You have to have customers. And yeah, to assume too that, like I wrote this piece recently about how this kind of full unemployment scenario. There's nuance here, where like yeah, we will definitely eliminate a lot of jobs, and it's true too that we'll create a lot of new jobs. A lot of these jobs will be those who can use AI and use robots and work with them. Um, but at the same time too, you still have this loss of purchasing power as a result of it. And if you make sure that people have purchasing power, if you make sure that people receive a dividend on their on the capital that is the robots and AI, if they receive a dividend and are able to spend this, that creates all these new jobs too, because there will always be a desire for a human created good or service. Like even when you no longer need that, that it'll be the cheapest option to have AI or robots do something for you. But that does not mean that there won't be a desire for a human interaction from that. You're going to spend more money for that. And so there'll be a premium on human created and human done stuff. But that's only also true to the degree that people can express their demand for human created goods and services. So like none of this works without a basic income in the mix to make sure that people can express demand.
Also, the main assumption is like it happened before this way, it'll happen again, and they're just like saying automation, it's this one thing that it's always the same. But if you're actually thinking about it with any sort of clarity, it's in the past examples of where automation displaced people and gave people new jobs, I prefer not to get caught up in the weeds of those jobs are paying less, different people, it was shifting around, there was a lot of pain in the middle. That's all true. But the fundamental principle is for new jobs to happen, there has to be something we can go to that we're better at. And in the past, it's like if a machine can, weld this door together through a simple process, we can still have people like design the machine to weld the door together or maintain the machine. And at the end, we can always lean on the idea that human beings can think and can learn. And that's the last advantage we have. It's the last one. What do we have beyond that? So if we invent a technology that can now do our last recourse better than us, then we don't have a recourse. There's nothing we have except perhaps the preference of people to receive service from a human being rather than a machine. And that's the last thing I can think of that will give us any sort of competitive advantage in a market that prioritizes profit. But that seems like a vanishingly small market to say all the people who, especially when people don't have capital to spend, that we're going to rely on people saying, I would rather get my service from a person than a machine for just reasons of preference. If it's especially infeasible that would save us in terms of a labor market when we don't have a system that gives people money to make preferential choices. So it's like this,
Paul's
obviously
I think Paul's main point is that like you can't follow the same trend lines of history that we've seen before in technological development. That it's like we're at a breaking point where there's a huge amount of unpredictability that we need to sort of prepare for.
Yeah, and the whole using past performance to predict future performance is just a classic fallacy. It's just it's a cop out. It's a way not to actually think about what's happening now. It's sort of a faith-based argument.
Yeah, I mean, there's no law of economics that says that what the economy produces has to be produced by people, and a lot of people, assume that that's not the case. Like, it always has to be done by people, or there will always be someone in the loop, and it's just not the case.
Yeah.
So, not a Dem in Michigan that has been requesting to speak for a while.
Give him up.
Open it up.
Do you want me to?
Let's see.
Did you approve him already?
I'll approve him right now. Okay. Cool. Yeah, I assume it's a him. I might be wrong, actually.
Dem.
Are you there, not a Dem? Did I approve it?
No, he's not approved.
I hit the approve button.
Can you guys hear me?
Oh,
hey, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Scott, for having the space and the UBI guy. I am a he/him. I do identify that way.
Do you have a name that's different from your handle that you want to use?
Yeah, my name's Matthew. Nice to meet you guys.
Hey, Matthew.
I'm one of those hardworking people. I live in Michigan, and I think to kind of go off of your argument earlier, it's interesting that a lot of people on the right don't listen to the UBI argument. And I think that's constructed in a life of like rugged individualism. But if you look around you and stuff like that, and you're seeing like the disparity in the cities as well, it's a problem that affects us all. It's not just a city problem, it's a rural problem. And I think UBI really does give the leg up for those people who don't view the system now. I mean, the median income being $5,000 less than the cost of living in the U.S. in general. I think that is that's heartbreaking. In the story you shared earlier about the lady, $71,000, and she's still struggling just to survive. And then when she goes to apply for those benefits, they tell her you make too much money, but the system still is just letting her sleep right through the cracks. And to argue to some of the people on the right who just don't see it of value, but they're also arguing that we should have a nationalist movement. We should invest in America. Well, how better to invest in America than a conservative man may have argued one time, a negative income tax for the poor. And that's always helped me in those arguments. Like I've actually gone, when I was kind of supporting Andrew Yang, I went to a Trump rally and I shook hands with a lot of Trump supporters as a Democrat. And the only thing that saved me, honestly, a lot of times was reverting back to some of their heroes or people that, the godfather of economics, conservative Nobel Prize winner, Milton Friedman, bringing people like that up and really connecting with them. That's actually what won it. And that's why I do want to thank you for this space, because I'm kind of an independent. I was raised in a small town. I've lived in Atlanta, so I've kind of seen a lot of different points of views. And I think we're all feeling the same thing. I agree with, I think it was Angie that spoke earlier, that nothing's being done and we're all really crying for help. So if we can organize, whether it be through spaces, whether it be through, I believe you guys are doing a couple programs yourself, which is really awesome to kind of pilot this out. That's amazing. So thank you guys.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Where in Michigan are you?
I'm in West Michigan, but what's interesting, one more thing I want to say is Detroit has higher drug use or higher addiction problems than, for instance, places like, San Francisco, that has the worst homeless crisis in people who are living with no shelter. And that's not due to drug use, like a lot of people say. That's not due to their mental health crisis. It's due to the cost of living and the cost of housing. It's insane. So, but I live in West Michigan.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Well, thanks.
I think that was a really interesting stat you said that then I was trying to find another thing to back it up with, but median income is 5,000 less than cost of living. And one of the things that's really interesting to me is the difference between median and mean income and what it really means.
Mhm.
Like the average income. So I was trying to find what the mean income is compared to the median, but I would bet you it's greater than the cost of living. It's very different, and that's what inequality essentially does. Is it ramps up the mean income relative to the median income. So the person at the 50% mark of in terms of numbers of people is far below the person at the 50% mark in terms of income. And the project that we're doing, Comingle, and much like a UBI itself that's funded on taxation, the actual mechanism is to sort of mechanically reduce inequality by transferring money from above the average income to below the average income, thereby leaving the average income at the same point, but shifting the median income up toward it. And that's the very simple mathematical reality of what we're doing with Comingle and what UBI would do. That I'm excited to just show people it in action. Like, here's how it functions. We have, if 65% of people under this mechanism are coming out ahead, that means 65% of people are seeing their incomes increase. That is the most direct and efficient way to combat inequality. And then in terms of like a national strategy, I agree with one of the things Mark Andreessen says is we should try to keep using technology to bring down costs of living on all sorts of things. And that includes, the things that are artificially inflated, like healthcare and education and housing, right? So that includes social tech to make things cheaper and bring down the cost of living. But also, the more we can bring the median income up towards the mean income and have a better distribution of money, the more we can exacerbate those savings and that effectiveness. And the ultimate goal for me would to bring the minimum income above the cost of living, right? That's kind of what we're talking about here is if we can get efficient enough with our social tech and our environmental tech and our communication tech and our housing and redistribution tech, if we can get efficient enough with all of it, we have the opportunity to make it such that nobody falls below cost of living. And that's what we should be pushing toward, as not utopia, but like a world that actually functions without leaving anyone out.
Yeah. Yep. And Boris, do you want to chime in next?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, I traveled from February 23rd to April 27th of this year from Ohio to LA and back. Took me 40 days to get from Ohio to LA because everywhere I went, I basically stopped and fed and clothed the homeless and cleaned their wounds, talked to them, kind of give them love and affection and talk to them, see what's going on. I think we're kind of at a precipice in society right now where we are either going to move forward and progress as a unit, as a human family on this planet, and work together. And a basic income is going to have to be a part of that. I'm standing right now under a tree, looking out across the grass, and I'm thinking to myself, it costs money for me to just stand here and exist. And that's not right. That's not how humanity was supposed to be set up. We've gotten off track somewhere and we're failing ourselves and we're failing each other. So yeah, universal basic income has to be the basis of allowing humanity to look at their passions and find their loves and find those creative things that AI and machine learning and stuff is just not going to be able to produce in the same essence that an actual human will be able to do. If you're interested in looking at my trip and the stuff that I did, look through my profile. I don't ask for money. I just do what I do. I love every human on this planet. I think we are all family. I think we've got to turn things around, and I think that's a good place to start as a universal basic income. And that's about all I got to say. And thank you for letting me speak. I really appreciate it, Scott, and everybody else.
That sounds like a really interesting
thank
project.
you.
So you're just kind of like traveling around, meeting people, helping them out. Is
That's
that
what
the
I was.
basic gist of it? Yeah,
That's what I did. That's what I did for 2 solid months. I got in my minivan and I drove west.
Where are you posting your experience? Is that an Instagram thing or where's that at?
So if you go to my profile, you'll see I created a GoFundMe before I left.
Yeah. Okay.
And so if you go to my GoFundMe, you can look at the updates. Again, I helped hundreds of people, but there's not hundreds of pictures. A lot of people don't want their picture taken when they're down and out. But yeah, I spent a lot of time talking to people. I think the most poignant one was an elderly African American man in Colorado Springs, and I walked up and I said, "Hey, how you doing? What can I get for you?" And he said, "I don't know." So I got down on my knees next to him and I said, "Well, how about I hold your hand?" And he said, that'd be good. So I took off my glove and he took off his glove and we held hands. And we stayed like that for about 5 minutes, silent. And he pulled his hand away and he said, "That's all I needed." And I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "All right." He's like, "Yep, you gave me some energy, so I'm going to get myself up and get to the shelter so I don't get too cold tonight." And I was like, "Okay, that's good." So that's what that guy needs.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody else I met, it's all a different story. We're all unique. We're all individuals. We've all gone through our own storybook in our lives, and everybody perceives and feels and thinks the way they do with their mind and their spirit and their soul. And you have to understand that uniqueness, and you have to take it with you when you meet every single person you talk to. You're not going to just be able to fix something with a blanket, but a blanket is a good place to start. And UBI can be one of those things.
Yeah, UBI can be anything. That is such the beauty of UBI. Like you've got charities, you've got government, and you've got these people who are like, no. What you need is a blanket. What you need is a coat. What you need is assistance in getting a job. Like there's a list of things that are approved. And, I doubt that there's really a government program out there somewhere where you can fill out forms, and as a result of that, you can hold someone's hand for 5 minutes. Like,
yeah, I think there's a lot of bureaucracy and red tape that has funneled the funds away from where they're supposed to go, and we're seeing our society collapse because there's no one being held accountable for the funds not going where they're supposed to go. I actually posted a little blurb about our 2023 budget, and it didn't get a lot of traction, which I wasn't surprised, because it's when you put your name on the money, that's when people start to say, "Hey, that's my livelihood." But you know what? If it's not righteous and it's hurting humanity, I'll put my name out there. I'll sign John Hancock as big as I can. Tyler Head. Put my name right up there and say, hey, you guys want to come after me because I'm coming after your money? Then go for it. But I'll walk every step the rest of my life trying to better this world for the future and for every human that lives here.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much for
that's
sharing
good.
that. And what I love about that story too is you can't do that kind of thing unless you have the financial ability to do it. Like it costs money to drive around, and it costs money. Be able to gotta eat along the way. You got to be able to sleep along the way. Like all this stuff, it costs money. And that's what I stress over and over again is that it's income that enables work. It's primary. So he was able to do these things through this crowd fund. You get that money together, and then you can afford to do this work that you feel is important. And again, this is entirely contrary to what Mark was talking about, as being that if you give people a basic income, then they turn into farm animals in the zoo, which again, that doesn't make any sense. But
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of tapped on something else that was like, it wasn't because you had a Kickstarter or a GoFundMe going that you did this. Like, there is something like that's just something you do as a person, as a human, that like you're looking out for other people, and there's something natural about that. And it's not common. It's like it's probably more the exception, but it doesn't have to be so exceptional. That kind of generosity.
I think what's common is people's desire to do that. But
yeah,
what we live in now is a world in which you have to take care of yourself first and foremost because you don't have that social support structure. But when we were interviewing people for our docuseries and like, what would you do if you had $1,000 a month coming in regardless? And a lot of people said I would, if every week I was fine or I had enough other money coming in, I would give to Kickstarters, I would help people out, I would whatever. First of all, I believed them. A lot of charity, or like proportionally, people with less money give more to charity in general, percentage wise. But also, it's what I saw. I mean, when we did a UBI pilot, we had a lot of people who were struggling, and like we had a man who was homeless, and we had a man. We had people who were in bad shape themselves personally, where I think a lot of people would imagine the first thing they do is just hoard up as much money as possible to be as safe for as long as possible. But he immediately went out and started helping people. The people who had suffered the most, especially, were the ones who gave the most. A man who was still figuring out his homelessness situation was buying Christmas presents for, his nieces and nephews who had never gotten to do that before, and helping his buddies out on the street with just some cash here and there. And it was like, and it was an immediate, like it was the natural thing to do, the way that it felt like it was obviously I was going to do this. And it was a great feeling for the people of purpose and meaning to be able to help in the way that they'd always wanted to, or to help more in the way that they always honestly already had. There's a lot of money that changes hands between people who have no money because they sort of know more intuitively that they're all in this together, that this is a thing that's beyond rugged individualism and we need to help each other. So I think of a world with UBI being, not only do a lot of people have more financial wherewithal to sort of deal with their own problems in general, but the ability for people to make a lot more of their life about connecting with and helping others. And yeah, your story is beautiful. And Boris, and I mean, it reminds me of like, there's also the bubble factor of there's nothing like getting out on the road and actually going and meeting people in their situations to open your eyes to what's actually going on out there. It sounds like a pretty invaluable experience you had.
Yeah, it really does make a difference to travel around rural America, just going to these smaller towns, and just like really experiencing what people are are living
Or
with
if
it.
you're from rural America going to the city, yeah.
Yeah, no,
The city mice and the country mice need to hang out more often.
that absolutely, yeah. Aaron, would you like to chime in next?
Hey, thanks. I just love this conversation.
Thanks for joining us.
If it's okay, I'd like to bring it a little bit back to the numbers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that okay?
We like numbers.
We love numbers.
I have so many spreadsheets, you wouldn't believe the numbers.
No, that's great. So I just did like some, the question, by the end of 2023, the projected GDP for the world is supposed to be something like $103 trillion. And, GDP is a broken number, but it's still an incredible amount of money. And I was just like, asking myself, like, all the problems that exist today exist within that $103 trillion economy. And I was just like, what if what would it take to 10x that economy? And that's actually a quadrillion dollars, 1,000 trillions, a lot of money. And just to break that number down, that is $50,000 times 20 billion. So how do we get there? Because certainly UBI would be a fraction of a percent, of what was needed. But I fundamentally believe the only way you get there is through automation, and it is through a humanoid robot, something that can actually do the labor, and not be distracted.
Yeah,
And
it gets tricky because you're measuring GDP, like you're measuring productivity. Like that's such a weird word. Like what are we actually trying to keep track of there? Like is it the amount of stuff that we are making? Like, and is that such a great number to be trying to increase? So yeah.
It's yeah, no, I know. I mean, I'm not even saying I'm asking the right questions. But I just, it's like fundamentally, if people still need things. People like stuff, and you're not gonna, stuff is good. Things are good. And I would like those things to be cheaper. And
yeah, the wealth is there, is what you're saying. Like the wealth is there for us to have enough of it for everybody. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, but it's like if you look at the cost of a house, 25 to 30%, sometimes it's more, is labor. And so it's like if you want to reduce the cost of a house, well, removing the labor, automating the labor would fundamentally reduce the cost of housing. Because it's like you're not going to grow more trees, right? Cheaper, not fundamentally.
Right,
Yeah.
but then the
like,
people that were building your house just lost their jobs, and so now they can't afford a house, so that house now has to be even cheaper.
Yeah,
Well,
automation and better distributive mechanisms for resources have to go hand in hand.
Yeah,
that's right. It's like you're right, because if he doesn't have a job now, he can't buy a house even if it's $1.
right.
So there is a balance. But it's like I mean, it's just incredible, right? An 8-hour workday, if you look up the numbers, typically people are working less than 4 hours a day at an 8-hour a day job.
I was just thinking about that today. Like, yeah, I gotta pick up my kids pretty soon. It's like that cuts my day in short. It's like, so I'm not really doing an 8-hour day.
Yeah, and it's like
that is weird.
A robot never needs a break. He doesn't have kids to pick up. And it's like I just, I one of my favorite things to do is, if you go back to the early 1900s, when planes first started to become a thing, a lot of people fundamentally did not believe you could fly. And in fact, some people thought it was against God. And in fact, people saw planes in the air and they said it was a trick.
Yeah,
Um,
I can imagine
It
social
is true.
media existing back
It is
then. Like there would be all sorts of amazing posts on social media, especially this app, about how ridiculous it is to say that planes exist, and there'd probably be some conspiracy theory too about that planes are made to like steal your children or something. Like I don't know.
it's like my point is like humanoid robots. Like, I mean, my father owned a wine shop for a long time. And it's like the idea that a robot could one day be serving a glass of wine is the most foreign concept to my father. It disgusts him. And it's the same thing as him being the people being disturbed by the idea of humans flying. It's like the idea that a humanoid robot somehow would violate, a man's right to work. I just think it's the wrong. You're looking at the wrong thing.
No, it's a reaction to the underlying threat to their survival and income. It's like people would not have such a Luddite reaction to technological progress if there wasn't a threat to their only current mechanism of survival. Like we have to break that connection before people can embrace technology. And you reminded me somewhere in there you said something that made me think back to Mark Andreessen again, where like all of his sort of fanboying for like these different economists that support UBI. I was thinking of his techno optimism, and I'm thinking how he must be a Star Trek fan. I was imagining him like going on and on about we're seeking the Star Trek future. I mean, we even talks about how I believe we're gonna make it into the stars and colonize worlds, and it's like, yeah, Star Trek had a UBI for a reason. Like the people in Star Trek have
it wasn't like
basic income.
Star Trek, it was like there was no point in even competing. Like you could just summon up your favorite food. I mean, and that's actually what I think the humanoid robot, like it takes the cost of labor almost to zero, not quite. But it's like it's hacking capitalism. It's hacking the idea of the economy. And I think it's the best way. I just personally, I don't want to be a machine. And the more a human being acts like a machine, in theory, the better their career goes.
Yeah, and it seems like the jobs that kind of turn you into a robot are the ones that we're basically using to. Those are the ones getting replaced for the most part. But maybe not in all cases. There's enough. Like, there's some weird things that are happening where, like, we're seeing like art jobs and music creation are becoming automated. Where it's like, well, wait a minute, those are the things that we were going to be spending all our time on back when we thought that we weren't going to have to be working crappy jobs. So there's something odd happening that we shouldn't ignore. But did Star Trek actually have a UBI? Like, did they talk about or is it just kind of in general?
No,
everybody has everything they need.
No, it's essentially a UBI. No one works for income; they work to do what they want to do. Essentially,
okay.
I wouldn't call that. I mean, I don't think it's not. It's post-capitalism in Star Trek, but there's a whole book. I've never actually read the book where it was actually it's like the economics of Star Trek, and it even talks about there is the transition to there and all this stuff. But as far as Star Trek goes, people's basic needs are met, and that's the important part. There's
no specific mention of how that works, and it's through
And I kind of disconnect a little when we start talking about numbers in terms of how many trillions or quadrillions of dollars the GDP should get to or whatever, because the real all of money being essentially a construct and something that represents resources and access and power, what we should really be measuring is what we were talking about before. Is what is the median or the minimum income relative to cost of living? So if we're working towards bringing down cost of living with automation and bringing up minimum income and median income with redistributive tech, then that's what we need to focus on. I mean, we could just take the number of dollars and multiply it by 10 or divide it by 10 and say, guess what, $1 is now 100 or $1 is now a penny. It wouldn't matter. It's about how much is out there, what you can get with it, and how it's distributed. So yeah, focusing on the numbers to me is like, whatever our currency, whatever our unit of measurement, does everyone have enough for their basic needs? And that's the only thing. And so then what we end up doing is we're measuring how many resources do we have, like what's finite, how are we getting it to people, and do we have enough, and how are we succeeding in sharing it, effectively. Like big targets of like numbers with a bunch of zeros at the end, to me, means almost nothing without contextualizing it within cost of living and resources.
And to add to that too, I just want to mention some more numbers, but also contextualize those numbers, which is that, again, productivity decoupled from wages in the 1970s. Since then, $50 trillion worth of productivity growth, economic growth, the production of the economy went to the very top. And had it gone to the bottom 90%, and had it continued, if right now productivity were coupled and in the form of a basic income, bridging that gap that has opened up since the 70s, then everyone would be receiving about $1,300 per month right now in basic income as our dividend from the productivity of the economy. So I just like to bring things back to that when we're talking about, how big the economy can grow, how much productivity automation can add, and how that makes UBI possible. And I just mentioned that we could have started UBI at a small rate level in the 70s, and just following productivity growth of what's happened in the past 50 years, then it would be above the poverty line right now. So we already have enough productivity. It's just that it's all gone to Mark Andreessen and a few others up there.
And I don't, yeah, I mean, I am, I mean, I have Tesla in my profile, so, I am, not a hater of Mark Andreessen, but certainly he's just one guy,
Yeah, I don't even think he's all that representative of like the tech billionaires, even in terms of how he's thinking about things.
No, yeah, that's actually another good thing to even talk about. Like, I agree, and it is interesting how I think that Mark Andreessen, his is a response to the response to Silicon Valley. And so just to get into that, like Silicon Valley for the past decade especially, has been really talking up robots and automation, and then basic income is even got tied to Silicon Valley because of the discussion that was driving even basic income was about automation and the loss of jobs and stuff. And so there have been a lot of Silicon Valley people that have been talking about basic income and coming out for basic income. And even when Andrew Yang ran for president, people called him a tech billionaire, which is funny because he wasn't a billionaire, and he also wasn't even from the tech sector, where he got his I wouldn't call it fortune, but where he became a millionaire from. And so since then, especially most recently, like post ChatGPT, post these image models, even I think the beginning of this has been the Hollywood strikes, and I think that the progressive left has hopped on, like they really want to be seen as pro-union, and they want to protect jobs, and so that conflicts, especially when you're looking at the Hollywood strikes, where this is like technology versus unions, and if the left wants to be unions, and then they're also anti-tech. And so a lot of even those on the left have been actually becoming anti-UBI because they're saying that it's like Silicon Valley trying to just do UBI to enable them to run roughshod and destroy all these jobs and stuff. And so I think that you've got this strong anti-tech kind of pushback happening, a lot of it from the left, but in general, there's a strong tech pushback. And then Mark comes out here and he's like, no, tech is amazing. It's awesome. And then he seems to be pushing and against basic income, which is the rest of the people in Silicon Valley have been for. So it's really weird and interesting to see this just big mix of things. Like things haven't polarized yet to the point of two sides. There still is this mix of ideas of what we should do, but there definitely are these kind of opinions that are basing themselves in response to each one that's coming out.
And fundamentally, I mean, Elon Musk has also called for UBI, or just thinks I don't know if he's called for it, but he said it's inevitable.
Yeah, he believes it's important that once AGI is reached, then we need UBI. So it's a very much a in case of emergency break glass approach, where he doesn't think that we need UBI right now or should have UBI right now, but that as soon as AGI is invented, then we need UBI.
Yeah, which is an interesting take.
I think he's got a similar blind spot to a lot of people who've never, like, whose wealth and success and the constant status of that have allowed them to believe that they're somehow more exceptional than other people, and overlook the fact that there's a lot of people that are very, very exceptional who aren't able to contribute their talents because they're just kind of scrabbling their way through our crappy system.
Yeah, if you don't have capital, what you can do in life is extremely limited.
Right.
And so it's like and UBI doesn't fundamentally change that either. I mean, it's I think
it acknowledges it and makes sure everyone has capital.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it gives everybody a shot.
Yeah.
But these guys. I mean, people like Mark Andreessen. They've fundamentally won the lottery. In many ways, Elon Musk did too. I mean, they fundamentally just got lucky. I believe Bezos called it a celestial alignment. And so, I mean, I'm just not sure they're that representative,
So I think we've got time for maybe one more question, Todd.
Well, there is something else I wanted to mention too. I know we only have like a couple minutes left.
I want to add with a couple final
Right.
plugs.
So I'll just mention that. So one other point of discussion, and it'll just be a quick point of discussion, is and this was like a big argument, or at least I had a lot of negative responses to this, and it was really interesting to me to see just like how they were all essentially saying the same thing, and how what they were saying didn't respond to my original point. And so, just to summarize this, someone posted on Twitter about how they were seeing all these pro UBI sentiments, and that they believe that that UBI would be terrible for people, that it would not uplift them, and that it would instead sink them. Those were her words. So if people got money, it would be bad for them. Kind of also what Mark Andreessen is saying. And I responded, noticing that that she was a baby boomer, that that she must have a senior pension. Now, this is in Canada, so it's not Social Security that she's actually receiving, but it's their Social Security. So and this is true in many places around the world, that once you reach a certain age, then you start to receive some amount of money every month. And my point to her was that that's hypocritical to say that the money that other people would get would hurt them, despite her being someone who gets money every month. Now, the goalpost was immediately moved, and just everyone was flooding my replies about how that's just ridiculous, because she worked for it. Like her pension was attached to the work that she did, and therefore she deserved it. And of course, that's not an argument for the fact that does having an income hurt you or not. It's not like you walk into a store and you're gonna buy something and you have the money, and then the person behind the cash register asks you, hold on, I need you to show me that you worked for that. Like, how did you earn that money? I'm not going to accept it, if you didn't earn it. It's like, or if it doesn't matter that your income came from work to your landlord. It doesn't matter to where you buy groceries from. All that matters is the money. So clearly, if you just have money, then you can buy what you need, and it doesn't matter how they actually got it. But the fact that the discussion was so much wrapped up in deservedness, then again, that always goes back to that. Like, even when it's not the point of the discussion, people they immediately think that, oh, basic income was bad because you didn't deserve it, even though we're talking about, does it reduce poverty or not? Does it actually enable people to buy food and housing? It's just really weird.
It would be intellectually consistent if she said, yes, my senior pension has hurt me. I doubt that she would say that.
Yeah.
All right. Should we end at the hour?
Yeah. We're here at 2 o'clock.
Cool. So people who haven't yet, there's a few things you can do to stay engaged in this conversation. Follow the hosts up top, and we'll do this every week. The article I put in the post, I guess they don't put headlines anymore, but what I want to say to billionaires with all my heart is some fun reading if you want to keep thinking about this kind of stuff and the whole billionaire conversation and UBI. And then I would say go to our Comingle YouTube channel. There's fun stuff on there. And anyone who hasn't, please go to our crowdfund, the Comingle crowdfund that's posted in here too. Put in just $1, put your name on the list, tell your friends about it, because we're building a community, and we want you to put your name down with us.
And go drop some money in the GoFundMe for Amboris. Sounds like a cool project. Just did that. So, even if you're done with it, there's some money to keep you doing the same kind of thing.
All right.
And see you next week.
Yeah, thank you everybody for listening in. And again, just before we go, if you want to help out, please reach out to us. We're definitely looking for volunteers to help with social media, to help with, audio, video clips, and all that good stuff. So if you want to help out, please let us know. And thank you so much. And we'll see you next week at the same time.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.